How you going? Thirsty Thursday. We are on the Powers beers again. Love a delicious Queensland beer. We've got a special guest tonight. This man, I think he needs a lot of credit for his bravery, what he does. Getting out here. Chriscoveries. Great. Thank you for coming on. It'd be great to know you better. How you going, mate?
Thanks for having me on, Dusty. Nice to be here.
Yeah, sweet, dude. So you've been at the Palestinian protest. That's sort of your latest round of protests.
Yeah, it was good to cover such an event. I had skipped the one the week before because I was deeply concerned that the police would not turn out enough boots on the ground in order to police it. Because I cover protests, and I have done for years. I cover hundreds of protests now. And I live streamed them end to end, uncut, because I was sick and tired of the 30-second cuts that didn't allow me to understand them. So when I did cover the gentleman, which has now gone viral around the world, talking about, well, what can I say? I'll let his own words speak for himself. It wasn't the first time that I've covered protests. It wasn't the first that But I was glad to capture it and spend the rest of the time as I did interviewing people there about what they thought, interviewing them about what they thought about the conflict and whether the saying was wrong or not. And I found over the 3 hours that I was live streaming there that there was a mixed reaction as to whether Gas the Jews was condemnable or not. And we certainly saw by the police response there that he was not arrested at the time. He had his freedom of speech affirmed. He was free to speak and then let go. So yeah, shocking stuff. Shocking stuff. We should be shocked.
It's shocking. Like, I could only imagine, like, if we had New Zealand at war and, you know, New Zealanders were getting bombed the shit out of, and would we be like, let's hypothetically say China comes down and starts bombing New Zealand. Would we be like, fucking kill all the Chinese? I could imagine, like, if we were, I could imagine you would.
Well, if we were, I'd condemn that. I'd condemn that unequivocally.
Yeah. I would say, like, yeah, I condemn it too. Like, obviously, I think it's, like, crazy. But I can see that when I can see and I can imagine that in this scenario, in the passion of the moment of a protest, you can say something ridiculous like that. You know what I'm saying? It's completely conceivable that someone can just, like, say some ridiculous.
And if someone does say that at your protest, you need to police your protest. If you're at a protest and you say someone there who says something condemnable, you don't just like, oh, glad I'm not with that guy. No, you are seen as one unified cause and purpose, whatever your cause might be. Anti-vax, pro-vax, there are pro-vax protests, freedom, Palestine, Israel, whatever it is. If there is someone at your protest holding a sign, speaking something that you want to absolutely distance yourself from, only you can stop him, not the police. Oh no, please, police my protest. No, only you can. Only you can. And if you don't, then you approve of it. If you're standing next to someone saying something condemnable and you are not actively saying, hey, whoa, that's not really what we're about here. We're not about wiping Jews out, okay? We're not. If you're not actively involving yourself in it, then you're approving of it. And that's how it'll be seen on camera. And that's how it'll be seen on camera. It goes for every protest cause.
Yeah, true that. I mean, I'm famous, I guess, for, not really famous for, but going to the freedom rallies, and like people would literally wear tinfoil hats to the freedom rallies, like, you know, the anti-COVID lockdown rallies, literal tinfoil hats. They look funny as, and I go with it. Lizard people, 5Gs are frying out our brains. Like, if they're willing to talk about it, I sort of just go with it and have a fucking laugh about it. You know what I mean? hyperbole, joking.
Are any of them calling for the elimination of other groups of people or even
No
individuals?
fucking way. No
Then
fucking way.
you're on a
But
different
there's
level.
some mad shit there that, like,
Yeah.
I think, like, yeah, I get it. That is some extreme shit. When someone's saying, I want to fucking kill, these people deserve to be killed. That's the most extreme language you can
You
ever
have
be
to
confronted
condemn
with.
that. If
Yeah.
it's right in front of you, you have to condemn it. You have to say something. Now, a lot of people, especially women, feel uncomfortable about confronting people. If you've got a 200 huge man in front of you saying something that you don't approve of, you as like a 90-pound woman, you're not going to be, oh, I don't, you're a little bit scared. The advice I always give them is stand at a distance and point. That's it. Don't go up to them and start trying to smack them or things like that. Just make it clear that you don't approve of whoever that person is saying that thing over there. And you get 2 or 3 people doing that, and you've got 2 or 3 people pointing at someone, and that guy starts feeling uncomfortable. Silently pointing at something, that guy's like, stop pointing. And that's when he starts to get angry. And that entirely, if he can't tolerate being pointed at because of what he said and getting that implicit silent disapproval, this guy needs to go. This guy needs to go. And again, I'll say it again, only you, the protesters, can police your own protest. No one else will. You're responsible for it. And if it's in front of you...
We had, at the start of the year, we went to a pro-life rally, and there was one left-wing chick that rocked up, and she had a sign. One side, I think it was tame, like, abortion is healthcare, something like this, right? On the other side of the sign, it said, fuck them kids. And I was like, what? Like, that's a crazy sign. And we were like, I went up and I was like, what's your sign say? And she's like, nothing. And I was like, turn your sign around. And it says, fuck them kids. And I was like, are you a pedophile? And she's like, no. And then I was like, pedo. Like, and the cops are like, mate, that's a bit inappropriate. And I was like, what do you mean, mate? And he said to my brother, this cop says to my brother, if you guys say you're Christian, you're surely not acting like it. You know what I mean? And I think my younger brother said, hang on, mate, the government's like going and breaking children apart in the womb and pulling them out. You know what I mean? I was like, shit. It was hectic. And like in that scenario, I was like, I think this chick should have been moved on. I think she should have been moved on for like the sake of 1,000 people.
Well, she's clearly opposing your protest cause, right? There's nothing about those two sides which say that she approves it. She's come to oppose it. And and she would certainly, roles reversed, be called an agitator. She's come there to try and create a scene of an opposition, which might be, I think she more came to have her voice heard. But was she loud? But those signs...
No, she was silent.
She wasn't saying anything.
And I guess like the thing is, she was hiding the the real fucking like fuck them kids. She had it like facing the back, and she would only like flash it.
I would actually say for your protest cause, which sounds like pro-life, that would actually work in reverse. It would actually show just a photo of her with F them kids. Most people would not approve of that. This is not a broad-based topic. Pro-choice is one thing, but F them kids is something that would work against her. And you could have easily publicized. You could have just it'd be a great photo op to stand with her and just highlight, there you go. This is our opposition. F them kids. Because
it's fucking crazy. So like when you went to this pro-Palestinian, was it there was the big one where the Jews was sort of like, that's the big protest I think you said you didn't get to. It was massive on Sydney's Opera House, correct? Is that?
Yep. Yeah,
and so you've gone to the second protest during the day?
Correct. This one happened during the day, much larger, rather than an estimate of about 500 to 700 people. This one ended up with 8, 10, 12,000 attendees in a large outdoor park. Yeah, this is a very large protest. The premier before this had said that this protest would not be going ahead. would not be
Wow.
going ahead, but it did.
So how were they going to shut
Police
that
were given
protest? How were they going to shut that protest down? Like
for
COVID
anyone
style?
who putting COVID laws aside, because you saw how COVID was policed, putting COVID laws aside, right, and the clear ability by police, even not relying upon COVID powers, even notwithstanding the extraordinary powers that the police put in place this week to prevent this protest, police have always had the ability to break up gatherings, large public gatherings. They've always had those powers within it. It's not a question of, of whether police have the powers to do so. It's whether there's the political willpower to shut down a protest of this size of tens of thousands of people. Because this is not a gathering of 5 to 10 or 20 people. This is tens of thousands. Certainly beyond 10,000, so into the tens. So there wasn't the political will to. How would police have done that? They go to the police minister and say, "Minister, we believe that there is a gathering of thousands of people about to occur. The Premier said that he doesn't want it going ahead. We like the powers to do the following: shut down the trains, shut down the bridges, shut down, have anyone stopped and identified as they attend the area and try and inquire as to what their assertions are. Inform them that they are not entitled to an unauthorized public gathering that hasn't been approved by police, and then ask them to go home. And if they fail to go home, give them a move-on order to do so. This isn't rocket science. You can give people move-on orders anytime this is police. And just give them on notes. You get the loudspeaker out. Everyone here, we believe there's a public gathering in progress. Give them move-on order. Do I agree with that they should be doing that? Probably not. You should be allowed to protest. And I think that's great, my personal views and values. But it's not consistent with what the Premier said was going to happen, which is he found the previous protests abhorrent because of the Gas the Jews chant, which I completely understand. That is within the realms of hate speech. I don't know how that isn't hate speech, but moving on from that, this is proven to be a group that seems to spew, and I don't mind using that term, hate speech, and unable to police it within themselves, and about to have another gathering. No, but the answer was yes, despite Premier's wishes, despite police ministers' wishes, despite the police commissioner's wishes, this protest went ahead. So
was it predominantly Muslims at this protest? Like Sydney's got a large. How big is the Muslim population of Sydney? 200,000, 300,000?
4 and a bit percent, and I'd say it's close to that. So when you put it in those terms, you can start to see when 1 in 20 Muslims would turn out. Now that said, it wasn't all. Of course, it wasn't all Muslims that did come, but plenty did. And to describe it, yeah, absolutely, I call it an Islamic aligned gathering. But to highlight, it was peaceful. I didn't see anything violent while it was there. The organisers kept it fairly well organised. That said, it was brewing with energy, anger, and rage at what was happening in the Middle East.
Hectic. Yeah, because I seen Albanese or the news article saying like we would like to shut down these protests, and I thought I wasn't sure if they said they'd like to pass laws so they were able to shut down protests like this. But I thought
Yasmin Catley passed expressed a wish that no protests should be occurring. It's unclear whether she was referring to any protest for chewing gum, or protests for solidarity with Palestine, or protests that chanted "Gas the Jews." But she did express a wish that she wished no protests would be occurring.
That's scary shit. Like when I hear a politician saying that, I'm thinking, what are we? Like, look, we bomb the shit out of the Middle East for 20 years. We cause a refugee crisis. We let all these people into Australia. Like, I would say, I don't know, could we say 70% of Muslims moved to Australia since Iraq, Afghanistan war? Like, the last 20 years, the majority of Muslims have moved here, So we've bombed our countries. We've had an influx of Middle Eastern immigrants. And then they, you say, come here, you're welcome here. Then they want to protest about Middle East problems, and we say, you can't protest. You know, we say you've got freedom of
Okay,
speech.
hold on.
Freedom
I
of
gotta, Darcy,
okay.
if I can, generalizing hundreds of thousands of people based on, and I know this is a talking point by literally the White Rose Society, but generalizing 100 or 200,000 believers based on what were a couple of hundred people chanting it. Look, I can't. I don't think that's true and accurate. I think there are people that do want to follow through that genocidal chant, but to say the kind of numbers where you're at, I don't think there's enough provenance to really come to a conclusion that this is to say a majority.
Oh, I
Support
don't
that
believe
chant.
it's a majority. I'm saying that I don't believe what I'm saying is we've got a large number of Middle Easterners living in Australia because we bombed their country. We've literally said, move here. You have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, a right to protest. We tell them this shit. When they start protesting, then we say, actually, we want to shut down your protest. Like, I actually believe in their right to freedom of religion, speech, and to protest. Like, I'm more shocked. I'm kind of more shocked that politicians would say this, to be honest. Like,
we didn't always explain that those freedoms were limited. And often it's not about how you, being the listener, received it, but what the speaker was thinking when he said it. And when we say, for example, equality, equality has been a great thing that we're saying everyone's equal. We're quickly saying, no. When the speaker was saying equality, they meant equality for them. When going back to Nick Greiner in the late 1980s, would speak about the freedom to protest. He wasn't meaning freedom to protest like this. He tended to mean within the bounds of what he regarded as tolerable and acceptable. And I think that's what comes up is whenever we're speaking, you're free to do X. It tends to be what I, the speaker, would call reasonable and fair. We don't, and rarely, think of what the other person would think is reasonable and fair. And in this case, the more passionate members of the Islamic community in Sydney have a view that's far further than what our police or multicultural minister or our premier had in mind. The views we saw on the ground, where I was able to record on the ground, certainly showed that. And the police agreed in not arresting the man calling to wipe the Jews out. He was not arrested at the time. He was not arrested. And 2 days later, when he was finally charged, not that the police media unit replied to my responses for inquiry, when he was finally charged, it was for swearing in a public place. So it's not hate speech. No, I think that's so important. Is something I'll say I've got to give to police is you can't always at the time make the right decisions. It's difficult. And here you had 30 officers and line of officers all listening to what this man had to say. And then he repeated it right in front of an officer. And they still didn't arrest him. Look, there's a lot going on. There's buses. You've had a hot day in the sun. It's hard. But to then 2 days later not come back and then with a charge of hate speech, with all of the human rights commissions that are out there, with all of the hate speech laws that are out there, with all of the people who've been pursued for misgendering and harassment over time, for him to be to be charged with throwing in a public place.
Do you think the cops the cops would have obviously thought if we arrest this guy, we could start a little riot? Like there could be some hectic. That could be the spark that lights that powder keg if there's 10,000 people protesting. So they make that decision like, we're going to identify him later and charge him later. Obviously, there was no charge. Like to be charged with swearing, that's ridiculous. Like I'm interviewing people at every protest swearing my head off. I don't know if they can go through your footage and say this Dusty's just swearing his head off.
Can I say, if it was to let him go and find out later, the inspector on the right could have done something about that and stopped him and said, all right, we're going to stop you. We're going to identify you so that we can work out whether we charge you with something later. He wasn't stopped. Instead,
Yeah,
they
right.
affirmed his freedom of speech to do so.
If it was a
Instead, they
white
confirmed.
guy saying this stuff, I dare to say he would have been fucking tackled into the fucking concrete and pepper sprayed.
I could just refer to Curly Smith's example. I don't know if you know Curly Smith's case.
Yeah, I love Kiralee Smith. Binary.com. She runs chat. It's a lobbying group, just like the Bogan Christian lobby. She lobbies for traditional gender roles.
I think the only best example I could probably give is Curly Smith and her charges and AVOs and comments around misgendering, and perhaps hers was justified and isn't the point. It's simply the comparison of her instance and his instance that can be is probably the most prominent to me.
Yeah, so Kiralee gets dragged before the courts. I'm sure they rubbished her in the media. It's like the weaponization of the media and the court seems to be the flavor of the day. They did it to Lyle Shelton as well. He just, I think Kiralee and Lyle both got not guilty. Sure. And Brian Houston, like here you've got kind of three prominent Christians. Brian Houston from Hillsong Church. Lyle Shelton was the leader of the Australian Christian lobby. Kiralee Smith, the leader of Binary, which defends traditional gender roles. They all got dragged before the court, rubbished in the media, and they all got not guilty charges. I'm sure they spent thousands of dollars. Like, I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
78-page decision. Jeremy Gordon said it had failed. And again, I have not read the 78-page decision, which seems to be necessary to make any decision, but let's not get into the earlier statement. Generally against drag queens, etc., etc. I think there's a distance between someone being generally against something, calling to wipe them out. I'm yet to hear Lyle Shelton call to wipe out all the drag queens. I am yet to hear that. And that I actually say that it's quite condemnable if you did say that. I think a lot of people then turn
Lyle.
What are you
I've interviewed Lyle heaps of times, and Lyle and Kiralee, I've interviewed both of them. I go to Church and State conference every year in Queensland, so I recommend that conference if you want to talk to Kiralee Smith and Lyle Shelton. They're always there, but they're actually like very compassionate. Like they want to defend the Christian community and Christian culture and our belief systems, but they're not like hate-filled people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Kiralee Smith and Lyle Shelton would stop, and if they saw a drag queen, tearing up, hands in the eyes, bawling tears, these are the kind of people who would stop and say, "You're right. Are you all right, mate?" You know what I mean? Like, they are very nice, kind-hearted people, despite the fact someone might be gay or a tranny. They would, they appear to me be the kind of people who would be quite compassionate, regardless if they disagree with someone's lifestyle choice.
I've been to a protest. I've been to a couple of protests against Lyle Shelton.
Have you? Was this during the gay marriage plebiscite? Or was he been
21? Just a protest against Lyle Shelton. He was having an event, and
nice.
Yeah,
he's a legend. So you've also, I remember how I first discovered you was this Christian Lives Matter event in Sydney, and this is sort of I think it was the Christians. I think was it left-wing people said that they were going to come and gate crash,
and they did.
They came and gate crashed a church where who was speaking? It was One Nation guy. I forget his name. Refresh my memory. Mark Latham, the legend ex One Nation politician.
We've all got different views on him.
Well, it's like there was a point where everyone was hated.
Could I have a larger window to show Mark Latham calling me a rainbow cameraman? Or maybe you want to play this?
How do I do this?
I can
I'll
talk over the
boost
top of it.
you.
We've all got a diverse set of views on Mark Latham.
See if I can. How
No, it's
do I-
okay. If you set it back, I might be able to fit this in. There we
Right.
go. The subtitles will tell the
This
story
is
while I
Mark
talk over the top
Latham.
of. Yeah, this is Mark Latham on the radio, and you'll get to see what happened
Well, I
outside
could
of
do it
Vancouver.
like
But yeah, Mark
this.
Latham.
Oh no, I don't
It's
know
okay.
how.
Just put it.
I'll
It's
leave it
okay
like
if you
this.
do it like that. But yeah, he's on Chris Smith TNT, and yeah, he decided to call this the people a little bit handy of what happened outside it.
This is you. You got knocked down.
Yeah, this is me getting knocked slammed, and
So they believed
gone
you
to
were a lefty. They thought you were a gay protester coming to protest the church.
I think so,
speech.
absolutely some of them did, no question. I think some of the people saying that making claims that I was not attacked because of an alleged sexuality, ideology, political, whatever it was. Yeah, absolutely, it was political. Some of them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I've also got to highlight, if I'm attacked for my sexuality, etc., am I then also defended? Am I then also defended by
So
men
these
because of that
dudes-
same thing?
So people
If the
did
claim
defend-
is that I'm attacked because they believe I'm a queer, was I defended by Christian Sakar because I'm queer? And that's what I always try and throw out there, because the story for me is not necessarily violent yobbos. There's plenty of them. It's men who are willing to put themselves in harm's way to defend someone who Christian before this, I'd seen him at different protests, but he called me with a very he was very suspicious of me, and he and three others put themselves in harm's way and took blows after this. They were clocking him on the head. They tried to kick a knee out from under him. The reason why the camera goes black is someone grabs the camera, my phone, out of its holder and strips it away, smashes it in a gutter and points at me.
Whoa.
You know, this is brutal stuff.
That's hectic,
yeah,
like,
it's serious stuff.
That's some very like I said at the start, I think you're very brave, mate. Like, I've been doing on and off interviewing people at protests and events, and honestly, I kind of avoid conflict and any drama. Like, I sort of go, oh, try to have a cheeky laugh, and you're sort of brave enough to run straight into the fire. Like, that's your tactic, right?
Well, for better or worse, whatever you want to call it. But yes, charging straight into it.
You're going straight in where the action is, mate. You hear the sound of commotion and you run straight in there.
Look, I will say this: doing what I do, you get used to knowing the sounds of a protest and how to chase it down. You get used to that guy. They never found out who he was.
So he's fully
Is that
pushed.
see the first man who just gives me a shove at the front, that was just it was fairly gentle. It was just a, we don't want you. But then these two boys behind me,
They ripped you out. Bang. Get out of here, mate.
No, it's this guy.
Right.
It's this guy
So you've hit the deck
charges after, right? So this guy is a grab around the neck and pull, but you see how it's a chase after. It's a real. So I just here, I've actually still got a fair amount of balance at the beginning, right? Yeah. I'm still doing okay on balance. It's here where I'm lifted up that this gets really hard, right? And it's these two shoves together, right, that come together that make it really hard, and that's where you get the lift off.
And you know, there's like a classic police tactic of like shoving. Like, it's actually like a police tactic. If you see someone like both hands push and lean in, are you aware of that? I've seen it at quite a few Sydney protests in particular, and I'm like, they train police how to do that.
There's Christian just there, and he sees what happens, and he charges in, and he's like, whoa, we got to do something. You see guys actually coming in to try and hold them back. And that is so much of the story. You see that they've got arms out and they're trying to hold the guys who want to smash me. Because during this, later on, a man lifts his leg up in order to stop me on the face, and Christian holds them back from doing it.
Whoa.
Yeah. I think it was Dean was the other, actually. Sorry, it may not have been Christian, may have been Dean.
So you're talking about the guys who are the Christian blokes who actually ran this protest, ran in to save your ass.
Yep.
Bang. I guess that's what you were saying at the beginning. Well,
this is the story the ABC. This is the story the ABC does not give a shit about. This is the story that the ABC said in the middle of this. You know what the story the ABC said? Christian Sukkar did not call for violence, but here he is at the center. Here he is at the center of the violence, or words to that effect.
Yeah, so they absolutely.
He's not at the center of the violence. He's trying to prevent the violence from happening.
He's taking responsibility of his protest, and he's directly saying, "No, we're not."
And this is so key. If you see violence happening at your protest, you're implicated and associated with it. Right? If you're not going to try and prevent it, then you're part of it. It's so important. You can say, "Oh, it was part of a minority, and I was there, and it wasn't really me." No, it really was. Christian was actively trying to prevent.
I don't think I've ever seen any. There's one event we went to as a left-wing event. It was Free the Refugees, and there was the lefties had like masked up and everything, and they were. One dude like slammed a cop with a wheelie bin, knocked a police officer over, proper argy-bargy with cops. So we were like, we knew this event's going on. I'm sitting at the pub across the road, just having a few beers, waiting for the protest to start. Next minute, there's screaming and yelling. We run over with the camera. And I've never seen, in Brisbane, I've never seen ever anything like this in my life. Like chaos. And wasn't reported in the mainstream news. Didn't hear of anyone getting charged. But man, if this was a freedom rally or a pro-life rally or anything like that, damn, it would be all over the news. Someone would be getting locked up. You know what I mean? So completely hypocritical. And I had it all.
It's not hypocritical. This is not hypocritical. This is hierarchical. This is about certain persons in society. If you tend to find hypocrisy that's occurring, it's not hypocrisy. You just don't realize your status in society, where your class, where your identity, where your sexuality, where your position in society is.
I'm well aware of my position in society. That's like kind of my whole the bogan Christian lobby, and it's like because I do think there's I don't know if there's even a chance for myself to low socioeconomic, maybe low middle class. Is there even a chance to climb into the middle class anymore in this country? Like, there's a lot of bogans. We're the bogan class. And is there any hope for us to climb out of the lower middle class anymore? And then, like, there's Christian bogans. And I don't know if we've got anyone in our corner anymore. I don't know if there's anyone lobbying for us. That's why I was like, the bogan Christian lobby. That's what it's about for me. Just to lobby for the low socioeconomic. I came to Australia from New Zealand with my mum. My mum was like bipolar with my two other brothers, just our backpacks. We lived on social welfare. So I know what it's like to be low socioeconomic. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't really matter what your skin color is. Like, if you're in that low socioeconomic class, you're getting overlooked, mate. You know what I mean?
So I'll make a couple of points about what you're trying to ask, which is, can the tradesman, sub 100K income, can't support Labor, can't support Liberal, trying to get One Nation to support you, any political class struggling for a voice, I've got a simple question to ask them is, are you willing to have someone else speak for you? Are you willing to kneel and give your voice to someone else and have them speak for you? And for a long time, a lot of men similar to what you're speaking about had B.A. Santa Maria speak for them. This is a man long dead.
Yeah, right.
And many are looking to Mark Latham, but Mark Latham seems to spend his political capital on tweets like, "Who'd want to have their dick covered in shit?" Nice, great use of words there,
Yeah.
and invite a disinformation, a defamation lawsuit. Everyone's looking for who will speak for me, who can I trust with my vote and my voice, and partially it's that men such as yourself are unwilling to grant that to anyone else. You don't trust them. People like yourself do inherently are within that right wing, within the space you're talking about, with that vertical, don't trust other people to individualists, try and rise above, make a name for themselves, all that kind of thing. On the other side, the reason why that the vertical you're speaking is struggling is there's no B.A. Santa Maria out there. He was one of a kind.
I don't even know who he
Howard-
is. So that shows how, uneducated I am.
He split from the Labour Party because they were too communist, but he supported the rights of a Labour working class. He was socially conservative, very socially conservative, but couldn't join with the Liberals because they weren't economically, they didn't turn to gentlemen who might earn less than $60,000 a year and recognize, yeah, they deserve a chance too. They deserve someone to live. There's been leaders like this over time. You're looking for someone like them. They don't exist. Kata, maybe. And I'm going to bring up Kata with you later on. I don't know how we're doing on time.
Yeah. Sweet Bob Kata, my friend.
Yeah,
I guess
then...
this was like a thing I learned. Like, so I wasn't raised Christian, and when I got invited to church, it was like seeing the more conservative lifestyle was like so attractive to me. I was like, wow, this actually is a hope for low socioeconomic people, is to like learn self-discipline. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, I really, by the time I was 17, I'd like lived a very wild life from 13 to 17. I was probably like high the whole time, bro, from dusk till dawn for 4 or 5 years. I was smoking weed from dusk till dawn, never sober. And like, I was probably high the first time I ever went to church, but I could see people who were living a lifestyle completely different to mine, but they were still cool dudes. You know what I mean? They're still living great life. Like, they look cool. They seemed like cool dudes that had it together, but they had the principles in their life that you could see gave them success. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, I want that. And it is that's the key to get from that real low socioeconomic into the middle class. You know what I mean? And I became a youth leader. Me and my wife, in the western suburbs of Brisbane, we did 8 years. Between us, we did 4,000. It's over 4,000 hours volunteering over 8 years in youth groups. And mate, I've seen the low socioeconomic kids get into an environment and a culture where they get to, finish school, get a part-time job, not fall pregnant before they get married, and like, bang, it works like magic for white kids, black kids, boys and girls. It works. Amazing.
Mate, something I asked for as a request to come on was to be able to turn back to you and bring up some of the stories of your past. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I can pick that up and we can change chairs and I can interview you as you have interview us.
That? Sure.
You've been well written about over the past few years, primarily for your membership and leadership inside the Proud Boys. Is that something that you're still part of today? And is that something that you're proud of?
Definitely proud of the Proud Boys in Australia. Like, so you think of the Proud Boys in Australia, there's chapters in every major city, right? You've got hundreds of members across the country of men gathering together regularly, drinking beers and having a good time. It's a miracle that we're not getting in trouble. You know, these are guys who get together having a good time.
Putting those aspects aside, it's the darker or more decried aspects of it that I think get the headlines more than any others. Jazz Serby, a member and leader of the Proud Boys for quite a while, entering offices and buildings, harassing people at home, breaking windows, and he was not expelled for months. Nothing was done inside that leadership, inside a group which I believe you were a member and leader at the time. Is that going to be one of the things? Putting the beer aside,
Well,
isn't that something that should have been done and dealt with?
I actually really do respect Jazz. He's got 5 kids. You know, he's married, 5 kids, a business owner. I think he was responding that some guy had actually doxed him, his business, and he's got employees, and so he just sort of returned the favor. It was like a genuine knock on the door, you know, say, hey, mate, we know where you live too, and we're going to dox you. It's actually against our tenants to dox. It is in our constitution was we don't mess with people's families and workplaces. So it was a violation of actually the club's rules.
But he did. He went to someone's workplace. He went to people's homes while he was still part of the Proud Boys, and this was before he left. Well, maybe left, but he's part of another organization now, which isn't the Proud Boys. But was he? Did he leave? Has he been expelled after he left and joined this other organization?
No, I think Jazz left because there was. I think we just said, look, we didn't want to. He also had a YouTube show, and he wanted to interview, I think it was Tom Sewell or someone like that. And we just said, look, that them guys, their values are not in line with ours. So we were like, mate, we just would appreciate that you wouldn't interview him. And I think Jazz was like, oh, I don't want to be limited in what I'm doing and who I can speak to, because he had his own YouTube show, you know. And
so you don't feel the National Socialists and that kind of thing, that doesn't align with your values personally?
It doesn't align with the Proud Boys' values. So the Proud Boys, anyone, or my values, no. So anyone can join the Proud Boys. Any race can join the Proud Boys. You're not going to get knocked back from membership in the Proud Boys because you're black or you're gay or you're Jewish or you're Muslim, or that's not what you're going to get knocked back for. You're going to get knocked back for if you don't have the same belief systems. You know, it's the tenets of the club that, you know what I mean? So there's actually we've had quite a few Polynesians and Aboriginals in the Proud Boys Australia. So Jewish members, you know.
There's bright parts of every organization. I do recognize that, but there's also disapproved, and certainly it's how you're written about that becomes true more than any other. And it's hard to get around the fact
look,
that
at the end of the day, even with Jazz, he left, he just said, yeah, look, I don't want to be told what to do, and I'm out. I'll just leave. And that was the end of it. It was all good. And so, you know, and I guess I think he left, and I don't know what he's up to now. But I actually personally didn't think, from what I knew of the guy on a personal level, and I asked his local, because we had a vetting process, right? And we say, who are these people, and what are their, what are they actually about? You try to get to know someone on a personal, because that's actually what the club's about. If you get doesn't matter, I'm saying, what they look like. It's actually the character of the person. And everyone said this guy was of good character. And from what I seen and experienced from the guy, I did believe he was of good character. And my experience with him on a one-to-one was he was a decent guy. So the fact he's gone and door knocked a dude and said, hey, mate, you doxed me. I don't think he was swearing his head off or being aggressive or yelling or carrying on. I don't think, you know, it was on camera. So the fact that he did that was against the core part of what the club. Don't mess with people's families or workplaces. But I don't think he was explicitly aggressive or
with your
violent
fraternity,
in
like,
that.
you know, NSN is don't reflect your values, and you want distance. It sounds like you want as much distance from them as you can, that you don't want to associate with them. And even if there was an interview that was to occur on a YouTube channel, you were like, look, we don't want that. We don't want that connection. So I understand that. But if I can go in another direction, is where do you want to be? Like, what are you putting your associations aside? What are the values you do want to front? Where are you trying to get to? What's the ladder that you're trying to get to at the top? Where are you going?
My personal,
yeah, you personally. Yeah.
Well, see, like, I do think so my say, like, my journey, my personal journey, like I said, I got invited to a youth group. We became youth leaders of a local youth group, did 8 years of regular volunteering, thousands and thousands of hours. And I remember, like, my young youth boys in Anala, and it was like I got them to year 12, and I'm like, this is my last lot of boys I'm getting to year 12. And I started my YouTube channel, and I wrote out my testimony as a Christian, right? I was like, this is how I became a Christian. And the youth boys are at my house helping me write this out. I'm not a good writer. I'm not great at writing. It took me like all day to write this out. And I'm like reading it to them. And I put the link to the YouTube channel. I was like, I'm going to start a YouTube. I'm going to try, connect with people and share my faith one way or another, because my faith has helped me tremendously. You know what I mean? Like, honest to God, man, like learning. I feel like the feeling of forgiveness, it must be supernatural. Like this supernatural story of Jesus, this guy, and the whole concept of receiving forgiveness in someone's life, that forgiveness helped me so much. And then to also forgive other people, and then to live life lighthearted and be like, wow, that was just amazing. Like, I'm amazed by that. And I think that to think, like, what do I think is probably the most important thing that I could do or want to do in the future? It is to, like, really connect people with that. You know what I mean? Like, to somehow, through with what I do, hopefully people, and I do want to target specifically kind of the bogan, low socioeconomic European kids who are like me,
I get that. But I guess the question is, will associating with a group that is so widely written about as being a terrorist entity, that the government of Canada has you on the same group as Al Qaeda, Al Shabaab,
it's laughable, eh?
Yeah, but whether you are or not, when someone reads this, right, the Taliban is associating with a group that's on that same list, going to help you get to where you want to go and the people you want to help.
Yeah. Well, the Taliban won, so I'm looking at winning just like them.
Do you want to win like the Taliban wins? Do you really want to win like the Taliban wins?
Definitely not. I'm like so appreciative, like, of my mates who did. So, like, the 3 dudes who invited me to youth group, it was a PNG dude, a Mexican guy, and my Aussie mate. And, like, I changed school. I was up to no good, and I was like, I need a fresh start. I changed school. And I think you get this for a story, year 10, I got my year 10 certificate. They called me up to the office and they said, look, you didn't have enough attendance. We want the year 10 certificate back. And I said, you're not getting this back. And I ran out the door, and I never went back, and I changed school. Thank God I did. I went to a different school, and these guys invited me to the youth group. But they were cool guys. And they invited me. I'm so grateful for that. So, like, definitely, I do not think it is right to intimidate people into any, or coerce people into any belief system. Like, I appreciate that I've never had you know, all the positive stuff in my life. You know, some people have had a negative experience in Christianity or conservative, law, you know, self-discipline. Some people like, damn, they were raised really strict. They've had these horrible experiences. I never had that. You know what I'm saying? So I understand, or maybe I don't understand. I've had a lot of the things that have led my life positive.
Let me bring you back to your goals of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, and your association with a group that for 99% of people, the only headline that they know is this. That's it. This is the summary of what the Proud Boys are to like 99% of people. So yes, to 3 or 4% or maybe 5% of men, you know, because they're young men that in that group, yes, that means something different. But to everyone else, it means this. It means this list. It means January 6th. It means angry shouting. And that's why I'm going to keep on pressing with what you're communicating to me, which is helping underprivileged white male youth that feel directionless.
And I think Christianity is clearly like not restrictive to anyone. Like I would help any person. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there is not a limit.
Helping people, helping young men, helping people like you.
Yeah, like
I actually don't think it's particularly.
A low socioeconomic Aboriginal or refugee kid is in a very similar situation to a bogan kid who's raised with mentally ill parents or drug addicted parents. Like,
I'd also argue
not that I'm even like in youth.
There's a lot of support groups out there for them, and I understand why you'd want to help young men who don't have that specific support group. But with whoever you're trying to help, right? I'll come back to pressing again. Given that headline, we can't delete this headline. This is etched indelibly, right? No one can change it. That is etched. It's now like the 10 Commandments up there. And given that some of the former members of that group have gone on to groups that you wouldn't want to be associated with and have done things that you regret, is it helping you get where you're going or hindering?
I think like you have to be realistic in a sense that like what the Broncos do on a Friday night is almost what the Broncos do in one season is they're getting a hell of a lot more fights and drama than my club in Australia has ever been in 6 years. You know what I mean? Like we've had no real, maybe Jazz did something. What we even said, hey, that's actually against the club values, dude. We don't do that. That's clear day one. Gavin McInnes started our men's fraternity. He did say, you don't mess with someone's business or employment or family. So, like, my approach would also be to, like, members of the club or whatever, is we have to say, hey, guys, as, like, Christians, we should repent. We should be like, hey, we should pull our heads in here. That's not good. Even say I'm wrong and then repent. Don't do it again. Don't do stupid shit. You know what I mean? I think Australia, we've proven, because the clubs had a good vetting process across the nation from day one. We've been able to sort of say to people, as you get to know people, this is the hard thing. It's like a church or anything. As you get to know people, you do say to people, hey, maybe this isn't the right fit for you and it's time to move on. Do you know what I mean? And we've been able to maintain the core principles from day one, which Gavin McInnes, you got to think of the Proud Boys like this. A comedian, the story goes that they had an intern or a guy working for him. His name was Rat, a young Jewish kid with red hair, and he was 26-year-old virgin. And they made this club as a joke to turn him into a man, right? It was on Compound Media. The whole thing was an absolute joke. People, us in Australia, people just like us were like, let's actually outwork this thing. Let's turn it into like a real thing. Gavin McInnes was like, holy shit, it's turned into an actual thing. It wasn't intended to do, it wasn't like intended to be like that. There was no like No one in America is telling us what to do. We're a bunch of Australians that were fans of Gavin McInnes, fans of a comedy show, and we took the idea and we ran with it. You know what I mean? So we're not necessarily attached to a hierarchy system. Do you know what I mean? It's more like an idea inspired our forming.
If you're not attached to the hierarchy, and you want and you simply reflecting their values, right? Is associating yourself with this terrorist watch list along with Sendero Luminoso and the Taliban. If you're not attached to the hierarchy, why continue to be attached to it? How does being attached to this terrorist watch list in its current form, how does that help you achieve your personal goals you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I do have ambitions. And like when I was like just of recently, my TikTok channel, like I've been deplatformed like 5 times, so many times, and demonetized, blah blah blah. Finally, like I got on TikTok about 6 months ago, and it took off. It went really well, and then during the course of this no campaign, I guess there was some pretty cheeky videos that I put up there. You know what I mean? They were pretty funny. I didn't think they were too over the top. I thought they were in good taste and funny. Anyway, they nuked my TikTok, the Dusty Bogan, and I was like, might be time for a rebrand personally, you know? And this is when I thought, well, the Bogan Christian lobby. Because I thought, it is important, like you're saying. What do you want to do? What's your heart? What is good? What's good and what's the vision? And for me, like I said, when I had my, when I was sort of like finishing up as a youth leader and I was like talking to my youth boys and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Sort of in a way evangelize and connect people and share my faith. You know what I mean? Because I was like, when I was like, I turned 30 and I was like, mate, you can't be a youth leader when you're 30 years old. You can't talk to teenagers. Too much of a gap. That's when I actually moved into the Proud Boys because I thought it was really the only men's club around. I was like, I just want to move into like men's ministry. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and honest to God, being in the Proud Boys has benefited me so much to like, guess.
Tell us how, please.
In a personal level, because the club, you could have 18 to 60-year-old guys of multiple different professions and, backgrounds. So you're like drinking and having it in community regularly with these, and it's like quite a variation of types of people. Like a lot of people, you're raised and you're with your year level, you're with your grade, you're with your year in football, and you go through this. I think it's a problem for men, and we sort of like lose out on how to really develop as men. When you come into this men's group, and like Gavin McInnes he's a creative genius. You know what I mean? He sets things up in a funny way.
Still part of the Proud Boys, right?
I believe he is. He is.
No, certainly a founder, but I think you'll find he's no longer part of the Proud Boys. When the founder himself stepped away from it and distanced himself from it. I'm not sure whether he got expelled or left. It's unclear.
No, I think he stood down. I think he stood down. There was a punch on or something, a fight that happened, and he was like, "This is getting too big and out of control for me." Over in America, and I think that was when, not long after, they got Enrique to stand in as the chairman, and they it was sort of like a moment where like the joke.
November 2018, he posted a video saying that he quit the group, and it came after the New York 9 got in a punch up in Clark County. He quit the Proud Boys. The founder himself, who's someone that it sounds like someone that you admire, and with good reason. He's quite an intelligent, eloquent founder of Vice. People seem to forget that he was a founder of Vice, even though they love Vice News and they love that kind of
I think Gavin likes bringing that up. It's Yeah.
Well, actually, the way Vice has gone these days, I don't think he's like. But the point is that he's quite a clever individual who recognised 5 years ago that he was going to step away from the group because it wasn't helping him achieve his goals. It wasn't. It was no longer aligned. It was hindering him from what he was trying to achieve. And it sounds like from what he started, the reason he started the Proud Boys to do, and certainly since 2018. The media on the Proud Boys, I don't think you've seen a single positive thing ever since the street punch up started to occur.
Should you leave Hillsong? Should you leave City Point Church? Should you leave, the list of churches that just constantly get slammed? The Catholic Church. Should we all leave the Catholic Church too? Like,
if you can't reform it from within, yes. Yes, that's why people do. They try to reform it within. They try to drive change. Gavin couldn't drive. Gavin is the founder, with all of his political position and power and what have you, was unable to drive the change and reform in order to stop the kind of media events that kept happening after Charlottesville that brought ill repute to the Proud Boys name, that he stepped away from it and went, I'm out. I can't fix this. And he's a guy not afraid of work. He's not afraid of doing his hard yards to try and fix. He is not afraid of that, right?
Yeah.
And he couldn't do that 5 years ago. And here we are in 2023.
Because I think what I think of, say, like Gavin, and this is like the positive thing I can take from it. He is a creative genius, and the way he sort of sets up, say, the idea of the Proud Boys, and a lot of his, if you watch his show, Get Off My Lawn, you don't even know it's like subliminally a part of the artwork, and you're improving your life at a subliminal level. You're like, haha, this is funny and fun. And you're like, you can look back and you go, holy damn, I'm fixing my life here. You know what I mean? I think it's quite creative and amazing. That, obviously there's that positive element that, that you got to take away. I can say from my experience that there's this positive element to take away from it and say, whoa, how beneficial is this for men? And like I was saying, if you can get men of different careers and different ages and you get them together, and then it's like, you're just learning. I've been helped so much by older, more mature guys with different careers, different backgrounds, different life experience. And I'm like, I've become a better person, more humble, harder working, better communicator.
Could you all of that with a different brand? Could you meet all of these people with a slightly different name at a different time, at a different place? Yeah. Could you get everything of what you're looking for without the baggage of years of media attention, of all of the associations? That's still happening this year. Remember, the founder, the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique, was convicted this year. And I understand that it is debatable about the charges around January 6th, absolutely. But it's still, this avalanche, in offensive, is not stopping around the Proud Boys. It's not going to change anytime soon. And that's why you, Dusty Bergen, you're one guy. You're one guy. Gavin couldn't stop the avalanche, and he's got a lot more behind him. He made a bit of money out of Vice. He's got a support structure around him. He's got support. He can get things done, and he couldn't stop that wheel from turning. So you're going to be you've gotten so much out of this association. Is there more you can get out of it, or is it? And this is why what I'm asserting to you. I think I know I'm really circling around this a lot, but. I know, but I also have to as well, because this is how the Proud Boys are seen, and I'm putting forward to you and a lot of other people who associate with this group. I think it's holding you back. I think it's holding a lot of people back associating with such a group, because I think they could be doing, from everything I've heard from you tonight.
Do you know,
not helping you
when
achieve your
Gavin
goals.
said this, the best thing that I actually like, Gavin, when he created this club. And he created Censored TV. I work for Censored TV. I have a monthly show there. He was like, I see a vision where there are multiple different men's clubs. And I see that there will be multiple different paywalls. You know what I mean? So he's a kind of like guy who does these crazy things that are fucking probably awesome and enjoyable. And then there definitely is a huge market, or that, you know, I think there's a huge value in something similar to what the idea of the Proud Boys was. And like I was saying, I had to rebrand to the Bogan Christian Lobby to try to divert away from some censorship. And like this has only been, I think it's less than 2 months ago that I changed my branding. Unfortunately, Rumble won't let you change the name of the channel. So I'm sort of like, I'm the Dusty Bogan on Rumble. You know what I mean? And I'm the Bogan Christian Lobby on everything else. But yeah, I actually do want to take the Bogan Christian Lobby and develop that into a new focusing on men group. So it's probably not going to happen overnight. Do you know what I'm saying? But personally, that's where I think it's like getting back to the originally what's on my heart. Like when I was saying to my youth boys, right, I've done this for 8 years. I'm moving into men's, you know, you come to 30 years old, mate. I can't do youth minute. It's kind of weird being a youth leader. Who's a youth leader at 30? And as much as like my vocabulary, I still do have a heart for young people. But, you know, my idea was like moving into men's ministry and really, mate, the only thing I could see was the Proud Boys. It was the only thing available. So I do think like the Bogan Christian Lobby is going to, you know, I'll invite people to follow what will be my Rumble, my Twitter and my Telegram. And like, hopefully I can start to connect more with blokes and say, hey, if you're in Brisbane, you know, if you're in Brisbane or Ipswich, we could start a men's group that would be more positive. We can learn from the mistakes. Or, you know, look, you just take the positives you learn in life as you go along. You know what I mean? You got to take I've had plenty of positives and plenty of, personally, I've only had positive experience. I could say like through church and Proud Boys, only positive. I can't say negative, like that I've had any negative experiences. You know, negative, I've got drunk a few times, had a bit too much to drink, and then gone, oh, I was a idiot last night, or I was a bit rude to other members in the club. Actually, one of my mates in the club not long ago, I had 4 months where I stopped drinking. Right, I said I'm going to have a break. Initially, I said I'm not going to drink from till the no vote happens. Right, and I thought it was going to be 6 months. I was like, whatever's going to happen, either they're going to call it. It'll be either 6 months I'll stop drinking, or they're going to call it and I'll be able to quit a bit earlier. And after like 3 months of not drinking, there was a few particular mates, even in my own club, I did text and say, hey, dude, I remember a few times I was drunk and I was a bit rude to you. And I was like, I'm real sorry, dude.
Can I wind back to a much simpler topic, which is just to try and clarify, because maybe it's poorly understood or not, but give you a chance, because this doesn't always occur, to clarify what your positions are on a few different things, because some you might be mischaracterized on. Do you support the National Socialist Network in Australia? Do you support their causes, aims?
I don't support them. I think them guys have. So I've had like a running joke that my grandma's Jewish, right? I'd have a lot of these like, they're called JQ spammers in my Telegram chat, and they just come in there and they just spam the chat about Jews, right? So, you know, I know the whole world's like, oh my God, Israel and Palestine are at war. People have been banging on about Jews for fucking a long time.
Can
I spam my chat, and my troll, get this, my troll was always like, but my grandmother's Jewish. And like, they would just flip at me and be like, you're going to get gassed. The day of the rope, Dusty, we're coming for you.
Do you support, this is an important one, this one. Do you support gassing the Jews?
Certainly not, mate.
Do you condemn those who shouted that out?
Yeah, like of course I condemn the words. I think it's horrible, but like I also see that guy, the Sri
This
Lankan
is a
dude.
lot
When I
better
look at that
than the
footage,
White
I
Rose
saw.
Society was able to. The White Rose Society wasn't able to. So you
Yeah.
are less Nazi less anti-Semitic than the White Rose Society.
Oh man.
No, really.
Them
This has been a
commies.
huge issue this week where a lot of
Yeah.
Palestinian supporting groups have not been able to condemn the phrase or the people who chanted it.
Mm.
And here you are, widely written about as a far right, neo-Nazi, blah, 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 et cetera, not supporting the phrase, distancing yourself from the phrase, and condemning those who would chant that. So
Yeah.
place that wherever you want.
Congratulations. I do feel for that particular Sri Lankan guy. Like, I don't know. It's a horrible, horrible thing he said, but I don't know. If I was there, I'd be like, mate, I feel for the people who he's probably said it out of a place of desperation. And like, I don't know if he really believed it. If he did, that's horrible. You know what I mean? But I'm
I
used to
gave him
a
a chance to
world.
try and
I guess
clarify the statements.
I was raised by my mother had bipolar, right? So I'm just used to getting bombarded with some real ridiculous words all the time, my whole life, my whole upbringing. And it was pretty rough. Like, honestly, it was pretty rough. But I've become a person who I can be forgiving and I can give people a lot of chances. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, personally, because I guess that's what you have to be like when you're raised by someone who's got mental health problems. You're like, oh, you just roll the eyes and go, okay, mum. You know what I mean? Maybe he's got a screw loose. But that's my take. I got a pretty chilled out take on a lot of hairy situations.
The bring up the White Rose again here. If this man had been cut out of context with a 3-word slogan or a 3-second clip, I could understand that. I really can understand that in the heat of emotion you can say something, and then just a minute later, be like, oh man, I really regret that. I really regret that. And that's why I did chase after him over 5 minutes to
That's
see
some fucking bravery, bro.
You know what I mean? How you feeling? How you feeling? Like, why? And I ask him some questions. Why do you feel that? That's why I chase after him, because I'm like, you got to give guys a second. We really can say things in the heat of the moment, and maybe you don't feel that. And a current affair does it. Everyone does it, and that's why I like to post up, as I did, a full 5-minute clip of him, all the way. And you can go back to the live stream to see what happened before that. Maybe some guy in an Israeli flag had just come up to him and said, "We should wipe Gaza out." And what we should wipe? What? We're going to wipe. Everyone's wiping.
Yeah.
You wipe me, I wipe you. Wipe. Wax on, wax off. Maybe you don't know that. Live streams there. You can go and review it, and then Alt Media Watch can go back and it's like, aha, the context is wrong. There you go. Have the evidence. Enjoy. But that doesn't happen. So I can understand if this man, in the heat of the moment, had been like, "You wipe me out, I wipe you out." It's not how it happened, man. This guy had minutes to recount it and wipe it back, to wind it back. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And before we jump on the next saying, oh, what about this guy's livelihood? If you want to proudly trumpet and say, yeah, look at me, I work for the super duper company. Oh no, how could they come after me for working for the company that I loudly chanted outside and repeated twice? I'm not sure he said twice or 3 times where he worked. Like, this just comes back to the routine thing. The problem is the man. The problem is the camera. Oh, radio. Okay. It's a great. Oh no! Look at what it did to you. Oh, look at what it's doing right now. It's oppressing me. It's oppressing you. Oh.
Yeah, the camera didn't lie on that one. You got, you recorded it. That's the beauty, I guess, of your style of filming. You get out there and you fucking film the whole thing, and you chase after the guy who said he just wanted to gas people. I'd probably be like, he's probably got a knife and he might stab someone or think I'm Jewish. I'm chilling. That would be my
That's
attitude.
why I'm not going to the next protest. I can't go to the next protest. Too many violent threats. A couple of death threats. Nah, too much. No,
that's
let someone else. Let someone
I
else
was
do
thinking
it.
of going. Like both of my brothers, we've all got like big beards. My beard's nothing, but both of my brothers have got big black beards. I was like, maybe we could go to a Palestinian protest. They'll probably just think we're Muslims. We're tanned up and bearded.
What do you film with? What have you got?
I just film on my iPhone, mate. Cheap as chips, ready to go.
Yeah.
No one's complaining. I use this. I showed old mate Samsung Go mobile. You plug it into your phone, got the wireless and the wireless mic, and bang. Sometimes it can be a bit glitchy. I feel like in a huge fucking protest where everyone's got their phone out, maybe everyone's like 4G like interferes with the fucking wireless mic. I don't know, but it's pretty good.
You'll find more so it's the 2.4 gig band, and where you've got to rely on something that doesn't rely on that Wi-Fi Bluetooth band, so you can get 900 megahertz ones, 1.6 gig, but yeah, you can get different frequency based ones, or you just end up going wired in those really big 10,000 group plus. Yeah, cell phone networks crumble, and don't forget a nice shotgun. You can get some fairly cheap shotguns. If I were to suggest one on a budget, the Neewer NW81, and it's got a decent shoe on it, and you can mount that. I don't know if you've got a second camera up or not, but you mount that on your second camera there, and that's got a fairly good directional.
Miserable tight ass. Like Gavin McGuinness actually pays me reasonably well, and he gives me. If I asked him for a new setup, he'd probably buy it for me. You know what I mean? But I'm just like, this works. I'm all good.
No, mate, maybe I should.
Maybe you should. You would end up working for the guy who, I think Gavin is full of comedic, funny shit. You're bound to make mistakes when you're just constantly rambling shit. He could produce 10 other groups in the next 5 years from like the amount of shit he comes up with. Like he's a creative guy. Like, and hopefully I'm going to come up with a group. Like, you know what I'm saying? The Bogan Christian Lobby, I will be outworking a men's group. It'll probably be a lot smaller and it'll be a lot more Christian focused. You know what I'm saying? And
my favorite interview of Gavin McInnes was this, which was on the amazing YouTube channel 1791, which I'd really encourage you to have a look at. Remarkable, because he opens the interview trying to understand the interviewer. What did your dad do? He was a carpenter. Your parents, did they stay together? No, they divorced. And the way that he disassembles this individual, the interviewer's personality, in a empathetic, inclusive, and kind way, giving genuine care for him, and you very quickly understand what the dialogue is for the rest of it. I mean, really, just have a look at that interview. I really enjoyed him and the rest of 1791's content. I've listened to a fair bit of Gavin McInnes, and I still end up walking away from him and go, okay, like he's changed over time, and I've got a lot of respect for the work he's done over that time. Inevitably, we point to some of the worst parts, and there's parts of it. But he also stepped away from the Proud Boys when he felt it was going in a direction that he didn't like. Okay. But yet we still slur him with everything the Proud Boys did after he stepped away. And it's like, well, not necessarily.
And I think like Gavin's also always chimed in, like January 6th, he said, do not go. You're a fucking idiot if you go. Don't go to January 6th. It was all over his, censored TV. He was bringing Proud Boys onto the show saying, don't go. You know what I'm saying? And like, you got to have rocks in your head. So there's definitely a lot of stupidity that is going on. And don't take advice from someone who's, I think he genuinely gives a shit, you know.
There we go. Cool. Dusty, thanks for having me on. Thank you for giving me an
Sick,
opportunity
dude.
to challenge you a little bit.
Thanks,
Yeah, maybe
mate.
I will start streaming on Sensor TV. You never know. We'll find out. I might do that. I might do that.
Hit him up, show him. So go email Gavin. He'll fucking give you a crack, probably, you know. All right. Thanks for coming on, mate. God bless you. And I look forward to everyone follow Chriscoveries on Twitter. Do we call it Twitter or we just call it X now?
Yes, maybe, possibly.
I call it Twitter. I call it X, whatever. One day it will be just known as X, but not right now. Is that your main social media? What social media do you prefer people to follow you on?
Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Facebook's probably the biggest one. It's where I seem to get the most follows. Where you'll find most of my wonderful photography.
Brilliant.
Yeah, check that out. Some wonderful photography. Instagram as well. I put some clips up on there. I don't do TikTok as much, but yeah, Facebook's the main one.
Nice.
Don't know why people have given me 30,000 followers, but they've given me 30,000 followers. Thank you, Facebook followers.
That's sick. Yeah, man. So before we go, I've actually resigned from the Proud Boys. So I sort of led you on a fair. I led you on there like really well, I think. But I've resigned from the club, and I'm gonna look into. I think in good bogan fashion, it might take me a while to get my act together before I say, "Hey, there's something here you can join." But you know, the bogan Christian lobby, I think, is definitely, you know, something that I look forward to developing into. Who knows if it's just entertainment or if I could build a community of Christian men, that'd be awesome. Because I really do value, you know, I think like for me, I would value a community where like I get as much out of it. Like it's all, you know what I'm saying? Like I value people so much that like when I enjoy people, you know what I'm saying? I enjoy people. If you follow me over the years, you'll see we do some volunteering, we'll do some charity, we'll do some, you know, political election stuff. Like go to I like being practical. If I see a problem, I do think you got to put your hands to something and try to see a positive change. You know what I mean?
Hold on. I've got a headline coming up. Following Chriscoveries interview, Dusty Bergen resigns from Proud Boys.
Well, I resigned before it. I was just bloody.
No, well, had you publicly announced it?
No, I hadn't actually publicly announced it.
Wow.
I sort of didn't. I didn't mind the old.
I really led to it.
Sometimes you got to take. I'm so small in my social media stuff. I'm sort of like, oh, they wrote an article about me. Yeah, I'm like, I'll take any fucking publicity. But you know, there you go. Did I have you? I had you. You were like Dusty.
Yeah. Well, I genuinely was trying to get to, like, when Gavin isn't part of it, why? But yeah,
I still do believe that Proud Boys Australia is it's an outstanding group of people that have really tried their best to make a high quality men's group. Like there is a vetting process, and yes, it can take time to work someone out. Like it can take 6 to 12 months to work someone out, and you say this isn't for you, mate. Like, you know, and they try to be nice and they try to have a brilliant time. So, like, you know, there is a proudboysau.club. People can join because you can't join. You can follow the Bogan Christian Lobby on Twitter and X and Rumble, but you can't join to be a men's club yet.
It's
eventually,
a Canadian government. You can't join because it's a Canadian government terrorist group. I mean, nothing's going to change that.
New Zealand government.
New Zealand
declared it a
New Zealand
government.
Whether nothing will change that. That is forever, and it's done.
If governments continue in Canada and New Zealand just elected the centre right party, but I would say them governments
short of maybe Winston Peters, nothing is going to undo that. And
Yeah, I
there's no
like
need.
Winston
It's
Peters.
not
I think
happening.
he's a brilliant guy.
But he's not a 50%. He's not a 50%. He's not a majority government party.
What is he, like 10%?
6.
He's like he's like New Zealand's Pauline Hanson.
Yeah, which is funny because he's half Maori, but that doesn't seem to. That should earn him brownie points, but it doesn't. Oh no, brownie points. Shit.
Yeah, I grew up in New Zealand, so I know the situation well enough. I do think there's a lot of Maoris like Winston Peters who are just like fucking brilliant. I grew up with Maoris, raised by a lady, Auntie Ollie, a Maori lady, while my parents were like going through divorce and all this hectic stuff. A Maori lady looked after me and my brothers, Auntie Ollie. She was brilliant. So like I've got appreciation for Maori people. Anyway, God bless you, and we'll catch you next Thursday. I don't know who we're having on, but we're gonna hit up someone. Thanks, Chriscoveries, for coming on. Cheers, mate.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers, mate.